So let's just get started. You just had a pretty cool experience, didn't you?
I did. I would go with the coolest one yet.
You told me it was the coolest one in your life.
I thought about it, and I originally said that I think it might be, but I have to go with it absolutely is, or was.
Yeah.
It actually still is.
I'm very happy to hear that. So why don't we start with your name and...
okay, my name is Phillip McAuliffe, and I live in Arizona, and I live in Ketchikan, Alaska.
Okay. And why are you here this week? What are you doing here?
I'm here to learn how to be like you.
Okay, more specific.
Empathic, intelligent, and all of the stuff that you do, I want to be able to do. And I figured
you're doing it fantastic. Right?
Somebody who does this is like, that's who you learn from, and thank you for that.
Well, what I saw today in you was a fantastic story and a returning to yourself. You told me a story about your experience in 7th Path Self-Hypnosis, where a friend of yours that has been passed, you said almost 50 years now. Can you tell that story again?
Well,
like what happened in the 7th Path?
Can I start from yesterday? Because that's when it started.
Yeah.
Well, yesterday at the beginning, I did the recognition, and I don't have to wait long for an echo, and I got it. And it was something about having salad for dinner, and I said, well, that's pretty interesting. I didn't have that, and I don't even care. And then I said the recognition, and the next thing I know, I started to cry. Well, not cry, but I would go with ocularly drip. And I couldn't figure out why. I didn't understand. And afterwards, I got up out of class, and I pulled my hat down and walked out with the tears kind of running down my face. I felt a little embarrassed and maybe a little ashamed. I don't know why I would, but anyway, so walking down the hall, I saw this, what I call a Druma doll. It's a Japanese doll. It's different sizes, but it's got a big, heavy base and a little head at the top. And martial artists use it, and when you knock it over, it always comes back. And that's why they use it. You don't have to pick it up.
Oh.
But it's for kids to teach them. You can't tip this over. It's balanced. It always comes back to center. And I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. Maybe I'm coming, because it was still rocking in my imagination. I said, well, maybe this will center me, but it ain't here yet.
Okay.
And so today when I did it, and you gave us the full version of the first recognition, I realized that when I got to the emotion part, I just started to cry, and I couldn't figure out why. And that was, oh yeah, well, how about what was happening yesterday? And I go, yeah, okay, that's the reason. And the next time the echo came, it was my friend Dick, who was my childhood friend.
How long have you known him?
Well, 50 years ago, the 12th of next month, he was killed in Vietnam. So prior to that, probably about 3 years. And it was one of those strange things. He was a high school jock. He was 6'7", played basketball. He was all-state. He did everything. He ran. He did everything. And I was this short little, well, not short, but compared to him, I was short. Geeky guy who hung out in the physics lab on weekends and did experiments and ended up blowing myself up, literally collapsing a lung. I mean, I've done some pretty bad things. A lot of OR bills, ER bills. And we were like opposites, but we hit it off. And it was in an interesting way that I've never had a friend like that. A male friend was like, it was like we were brothers from another life or another mother or something. Yeah. And we just became best friends. And the week before he was deployed to Southeast Asia, he and I took his Chevelle Super Sport, goes 1,000,000 miles an hour, drove from Boston to Miami in less than 24 hours, averaged over 100 miles an hour. I mean, it was seriously scary and really stupid, totally type A. And we got there and said, well, what are we going to do? I said, well, we both scuba dive. We were both lifeguards. I said, let's go to the Bahamas and go scuba diving. So, okay, how much money do you have? I said, well, we have enough to get there. We'll worry about it later. So we went, and we had a great time, and we went drinking and dancing and eating, and we rented scuba gear and dove off the edge of the continental shelf. It was the first time I ever looked into infinity. It was still on Earth. It drops off 12,000 feet in an 80-foot horizontal span, and I expected leviathans to come up.
Wow. And
they didn't, but that was probably cool. But and then we went out gambling that evening, and strangely enough, ran into Joe DiMaggio from Simon and Garfunkel, and at the time it was a popular song. So we shook hands and hello, and went inside and played the quarter machine because we didn't have much money, and won $220-ish, and it was enough to fly back to Miami. Didn't have enough gas, But we worry about that when we got there.
Yeah.
And we drove back at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And a week later, he deployed to Southeast Asia, and 6 weeks later, he was dead. And
tell us how he died, because I thought that was kind of cool.
well, he was a hero.
Yeah.
Like, we were both like Eagle Scouts, and he was the kind of person that would take off his jacket, put it on the ground for a little old lady, you know, even if it was his best jacket, and you know, it just goes the right thing to do, and you don't think about it, you just, that's the way we were trained. And so he took a job as an Army warrant officer, and he flew what they called a Huey gunship. It basically a two-seat helicopter gunship, and they used it to provide protection, escort protection for mostly medevac aircraft, because they really don't have much protection. And he was protecting this one guy, was carrying a couple of wounded people, and he saw out of the corner of his eye, at least this is the story I got from a friend of his that survived this thing, a flash, and he knew it was a SAM missile, which is a surface-to-air missile. And he said the way they do it is they're heat-seeking, and they fly right up your tailpipe, because that's where the exhaust comes out. And he said the only way to get his helicopter into a place where he could do anything about it was to fly into the path of the missile. And he said, you know, this could be trouble, but, you know, it could work out too. And he caught the missile, and the aircraft blew up and crashed, and
So he saved the
medevac, and they landed, and I never knew what happened, but I'm sure that the guy probably figured it out and went looking, you know.
So what happened in your experience today with your friend? What did?
Well, he kind of came to me, and I was just sitting there during the second session this morning. The tears just kept coming, and I was sitting there dripping on my shirt, and I said, I don't understand. One of my echoes was, I need some help. And the next thing I know, there was Dick, and it wasn't him because I couldn't see him. I mean, there wasn't enough room to see him. He's a huge guy. But I heard his voice, and I heard him say, "It's okay now." So what do you mean? He said, well, it's funny. It's amusing to me. It's emotionally hysterical, but not really. But kind of gallows humor, like. But he said, "It's going to be okay now." And I said, "Okay." He said, "That was the doll." He said, "It stopped rocking." I said, "Oh, cool." He said, "You do realize that if you and I had gone to Alaska and flown this seaplane and done all that extraordinary exploring stuff like we always used to do, that you'd have missed the life you have." And I kind of looked at him like, huh? And he said, "Think about it." And all of a sudden, the scene, it was like a movie, it faded to black, and it was like being Scrooge, and all of a sudden, up out of the backdrop of darkness would come my wife. And she was smiling, and he said, "You should have never met her." And that would have sucked.
Yeah.
And then she faded away, and then I said the recognition again. It was like, echo, another scene, echo, another scene, recognition, another. And the next one was my kids, and they were smiling. Then it was my dogs.
You never would have those kids.
Yeah, I never would have had them.
Or the dog.
And they're great people, and the dogs, I kind of feel the same way that a lot of people do. You know, the more I get to know people, the more I like dogs. But that's changed, by the way. It's different now.
Okay.
But that was 2 weeks ago. So, and it was kind of like I saw my life, what it was, and what I would have missed. And you know, I didn't say it, but I thought it to him. It's like, this worked out better. And it's not just because it is what it is and I can't change it, quote unquote, but it worked. This is the way it was supposed to be. He said, "Well, but you could keep going." He said, "You can't replace me, but you can do the stuff we would have done."
And what did you want to do?
Well, we were going to start a company. I didn't know anything about companies or anything, but we were going to start a business, and he was going to be the bush pilot, and I was going to be the navigator, photographer, not bombardier, but medic, because that's the way I did things. And we were going to come up here to Alaska and fly a float plane around to just have adventures and make money and you know, do all that good stuff. there was really no purpose other than to have an adventure and make money, but at that point that was good enough. And actually I still want to do that. So
how do you feel now?
I feel like I finally realized that in my life I've been looking for something I already found.
Okay.
I just hid it away. And that was the freedom to be and to say and to do what I came here to do. I feel like I found my path.
What is it now? What are you going to do now? What do you think?
Well, I'm gonna do three things. One, and it's on the back burner, and I don't know why. Maybe it should be on the front because I put it on the back. Is being part Cherokee. I've always had this thing for indigenous kids. I'm just gonna call them Indians. That's what I would call me. And I've always seen how kids can be, before they get to be as screwed up as I got to be as an adult, they can be helped a whole lot quicker, easier, and they'd have a life to live instead of looking back at one they wish they hadn't. And I said, well, you know what? If they're vulnerable and they're in trouble, I've been there and I know that. I said I can help them because I've been there. And the other thing was to help vets, and it wasn't just maybe originally it was just to help vets because I always felt guilty that I couldn't help Dick. You know, there's nothing you can do sometimes in life. And the remorse and the guilt and the sorrow and the loss was hard.
What about now?
I had no way to deal with it until this morning.
That's why I think why I
I'm kind
wanted
of crying
to
because
talk
I'm so
to you.
happy.
Yeah, well, crying, sometimes we cry because we're happy.
Well,
So
like I
wanted
said,
you to share
I'm not
the
supposed
story.
to, or at least I wasn't. 2 weeks ago I wasn't supposed to. Now it's okay.
That's what you were taught, right?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to cry, not
That's
supposed
what
to
I was
have any
indoctrinated
emotions.
into.
And how many people in the world do you think have had that same experience where they're not supposed to have feelings?
A good chunk of the people I know.
You want to help them?
Now I know how. I wanted to help them before, but I had no idea.
Now you do.
Now, as a master hypnotist, I can do something.
That's right. You've only been here how many
I've only been here a day as a master hypnotist. Before that, I was just a hypnotist.
Right.
Because I practiced on my sister when she was 13.
So what else do you want to tell everybody before we have to end this today about your experience or what you want everyone to know
I would
about
say-
their own life?
I would say two things. Don't ever give up the search for why you're here.
Okay.
And just because it may seem lofty and heady and almost full of hubris, it's not. If it's in the direction of improving your life and the life of everyone you touch and everyone they touch, then it's the right thing to do. And if it makes you happy, and it's not weird, it's the right thing to do. And my problem has always been, well, how do I do it? And what about this? And am I too old, or I don't have enough education? And all of a sudden, it's not. I don't give a crap. If I need more education, I'll go back and get it. If I need to be too old, I'll pretend I'm younger. You know, the shell doesn't matter anymore. It's like,
That's right.
so now I think I have. Now I know I have almost all the tools in my toolbox that I need, and so I'll be here for another few weeks. And next Friday, I'll have it full.
That's right.
And like I said, I can go home and start the practice I didn't think I was going to do. I had this excuse about I needed to pick up and get ready, and then I was going to move, and that's going to take a month, and that's going to... And I realized that was just putting off the inevitable change, and after this morning, I don't want to put anything off anymore.
Right. So does the dog, what's the...
It stopped rocking.
Okay.
I feel balanced again. I feel like I had one foot on a slippery banana peel, and I wasn't really sure which foot it was, so I was afraid to move.
Wow, what a great...
And it was like, okay, now I know I have traction under both feet, so, and I know the direction. And talking to Ron, it's like, that's bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
Take people out on a bucket list experience that they can find out why they're here and fulfill that. And it's not about money, it's not about friends, it's not about stuff. And I've had it all, and I've lost it all. I went through a bankruptcy, lost my business, my everything but my family. And it didn't matter. I've never been so happy in my life, and it's like, it has nothing to do with anything other than the resonance that I found myself grinning to ear. I must look kind of strange for people walking down the street, maybe not in the city, but where I live, it's like, why are you smiling? You have to smile
Because of
about.
your experience today?
Yeah. Well, and that falling down thing, to me, people look at me and they go, what happened to you? And I said, well, it's a long story, but...
So now you can help others have similar experiences.
It's a similar thing, but without having to fall down, because that's dangerous. You could be a quadriplegic in a heartbeat.
Right.
This way, you can do it That's why I'm so excited about 7 Path, to be honest with you. You know, this is not an either or, but if I went home and couldn't do 5 Path for whatever reason, I would do 7 Path. I would come back and be an instructor if I could, and pass it on to people, because to me, the idea of success is when you find out what to do and then you clone yourself. Because you can't do it all, and they clone themselves. And it goes like the algae scum on the pond. And one day, the night before it's half full, and the next day the whole world is full.
That's right.
And it's like boom, and everybody's got it, and they're all on the same ticket, and we don't do what we do anymore. And it's like, I was saying that secret book, I call The Secret of Secrets, after my wife read it, she said, you know what, if people had to read this in high school and they couldn't get out without passing the test, I said, it would be a different world. And I never realized that it was the one, probably of all the tens of thousands of books I've ever read, it was one of the most, top 3 or 4
The
most
Secret Language
influential.
of Feelings.
Yeah.
By Cal
I want to buy it and give it to everybody I know.
Well, I think you probably should. But any last thoughts before we have to end here right now?
Just because you don't know what to do, don't quit doing what you feel like you should. And I'll tell you something else. If you have any problems at all, ask for help. It's not a biblical thing, ask and you shall receive. It's not anything else, but the universe works. If you ask, you'll get help. You have to listen. That's the bitch. So I went around my whole life asking for help and then not paying attention. And it's like eventually the help goes away, because it's like you're not paying attention, we're not bothered.
Yeah.
And so it's in the whispers at first. And when you start to listen to the whispers, you go, well, wait a minute. And then it's all over everywhere. And I started this mantra about, I walk around now and I go, what does that remind me of and why? And it starting to pull these bits of data from all these different places, and I could feel my subconscious forming new conclusions and new beliefs and setting up a whole new file structure.
Beautiful.
And I had some questions to ask you about computer things, because I used to be
we
involved.
have to do that later.
But that was, yeah. And so I would say, do what you believe in your heart, and don't worry about why you can't or anybody else's opinion. And then if you run into a roadblock and you can't figure it out, go to bed one night and ask for help, and then be sure to listen. Mm-hmm. And then when you do it, don't just say, well, that's really cool, thanks, I'm grateful for that. Do something with it.
Yeah, share it, or
if you don't do anything, if you don't even if you wrote it down.
Well, that's why you're telling your story
doesn't
here
get
today.
lost.
This is the beginning for you, right?
Apparently so, and I never thought this would ever end up like this.
I heard your story, and I just had to say we've got to capture this. Whether this gets used or not, it's yours, and you'll have it because Dick came to you today and helped you understand why you're here and how to fulfill the dream that you guys created 50 years ago in a different way, right? Okay.
So what I want to do now is, this is weird, because I'm not an emotional person, like I said. I was programmed. But years and years ago, I went back to Washington. I went to the Vietnam Wall. And I found his name. And this was years after, and I kind of sort of collapsed on my knees and just went numb. Kind of like, kind of like the day I found out he died. And now I'm going to go back, and it's going to be different. And I think there's a bit of inspiration there left for me to go pick up.
Yeah, I think so too. So you'll share a picture of you being there?
I'll bring it back, because now my wife doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to go, if I can get the tickets, better yet, I'm going to go in August back to Massachusetts for the conference.
Yes, good.
And I wasn't going to, and I had all the reasons why, and none of them had to do with anything other than I don't know, some kind of fear, or some kind of, it wasn't about money, it wasn't about timing. I work for myself, I make my own time, I make my own money, that's not an issue, but I'm going to do it.
Good.
And I don't even know why, but I'm going to hang out with people like you and Cal and find out, because I want to be able to embody and outpicture and live this frame of reference, this place of compassion and helping, like you guys do. I mean,
you're doing it right now.
I have superheroes now. I mean, heroes are cool, but superheroes are better.
Okay. Well, that's going to be it for now. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tell everybody once again what's your name.
My name is Philip, and thank you for watching this. And I hope that some of this made some sense, and I hope in some way it'll help you out. It sure did me.
Very good. And I'm Erica Flint. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.